Hi everybody and welcome to Fab Tax. I'm Rosemary and thanks for stopping by. Today I'm excited to share two Farmhouse Buffalo Check Dollar Tree DIYs. First, there's this white stag's head on a red and black buffalo check background, and then this merry and bright sign in red on a white and black buffalo check background. Now the neat thing about these is that they both light up. I'm really excited to show you how I put these together, so let's go ahead and get started. So for both of these projects, I'm using 3 of the 8x10 Dollar Tree frames. Now the ones that I'm using are completely flat on the sides and on the front. There's no beveling or any kind of decoration on them. I also needed one of these merry and bright wood cutouts from the Dollar Tree, and then one of these Hobby Lobby scrapbook paper. And then also I had some fairy lights from a previous project, but I originally purchased them at Hobby Lobby. I wanted to paint my merry and bright sign red, so you can really use either this colonial red from Rust-Oleum spray paint or the crimson from Waverly, although the crimson would probably have been better because it's a brighter color, and I think that colonial red was actually too dark. While the paint was drying, I took 2 of the frames and removed all of the glass and paper and backings, and then just took my pliers and removed all of the little metal holders that go to the back of the frame. And I did that for 2 of the 3 frames. Next, I took my fairy lights and began attaching them to the inside of one of the frames. So to do that, I used this clear tape that I got from the Dollar Tree. This is kind of almost like a packing tape quality, but it's nice and thin, so I could use it. It works well for this project. And then what I'm doing is just laying it along the wire along the inside of the frame, and then in between the lights, I'm just taping it down with that crystal clear tape. Now with this set that I originally purchased from Hobby Lobby, the lights were set kind of far apart, and so although both strands that I use for both projects have 20 lights, this one I actually had to wrap twice because the wire in between was so much more wire. But you'll see in the second set it just went around once because the lights were much closer together. Once I get to the end, I just leave that wire that attaches to the controller because I need to feed that through the back and have that available to turn the unit on and off. Next, I took my second frame that I had removed all of the little holders on. And for this one, on the inside, I'm going to apply a thin strip of E6000 all around the inside. And then I'm going to take my hot glue and just add a few dabs on all 4 of the sides, just so that when I apply the glass now, the hot glue will hold it in place while the E6000 sets up. Next, I'm going to add my merry and bright sign. It does fit in pretty well, so I just kind of snap it into place. But then to hold it, I want to make sure that it does stay. So there along the bottom, the frame will cover any of that glue there because the bottom of the bright actually does get covered by the frame. But if I just add a little glue there, I just want to make sure that it stays in place when I put the unit all together. And then I just want to weight everything down. So I just took some paint and some other objects to hold everything in place while the glue dries. Then I went back to my third frame and took that all apart. But in this case, I will be keeping the little metal hooks intact. And I will also be using everything but the glass of this frame. So I just set those other pieces aside for now, and then I got my scrapbook paper and just traced the outline of the cardboard backing on the scrapbook paper. And then I just cut it out. Next, I used some Mod Podge to attach the paper to the backing of the frame. So my method for this, if you've watched my channel, you know that I'm a big proponent of a dry Mod Podge, especially when you're working with these bigger pieces of paper. You'll tend to get a lot of, gapping and welting, and all kinds of fun stuff happens when it gets too wet and you use too much. So what I do is just add a very thin coat of the Mod Podge, and then make sure it's nice and even. See, I'm kind of really thinning it out, making sure it's really nice and thin and nice and even. Then I let it dry a little bit, fan it a little, make sure that it's just a little bit tacky, and then I can go ahead and apply my paper. And then I just smooth it out, make sure there's no bubbles. There's going to be some bumping because there are hooks and such in the back of the cardboard, but it smooths out pretty well. And then I'll set it aside to dry. But once it's dry, I will add it back to the frame. I'm going to go ahead and add to the back of that all the paper, the cardboard, the little separator before securing it with the little metal tabs again, because I want it to hold really nice and tight and have a nice good fit on the frame. Once that's done, I'm going to take my lighted frame and I'm going to be gluing the two frames front to front. So before I do that though, I'm going to feed that controller and wire through the back of the checkered frame. So I'll just push it through, and then I want to just cut a little corner of that frame so that it has a little space to go through. So I'll just cut the very corner through all the different paper and cardboard, and then that just gives it a little hole to go through so that the cord can sit nicely outside of the frame. Before gluing, I just added the frame to a box because I wanted to make sure I kind of had a straight edge for it to sit up against to make sure all the pieces stay in line. So all I'm doing is putting some E6000 around the front of the checkered frame, and then again going to add some dabs of hot glue. That's just going to serve to hold the frames in place while the E6000 sets up. And then again, I'm going to go front to front on the check frame to the frame that has the lights. And now the third frame that has the merry and bright, I'm going to just do again the E6000 around the back now of that lighted frame. And then again, a few dabs of the hot glue. And then I will take my merry and bright frame and just lay that right on top. And again, I just use a box. You can use a wall or a corner of your countertop. But I just find that it just, in case that E6000 moves around, it keeps everything nice and lined up. And here's the finished project, perfect for lighting up a table, shelf, or mantle. So for the next project, I pretty much followed the same process. I got 3 of these 8x10 frames from the Dollar Tree with the flat fronts and sides. And this time I did get it in a brown tone. Thought that would look nicer with the red and black check. And then for the stag, I just Googled outline of a stag and then just sized that on my computer and printed it out. And then the black and red buffalo check from Hobby Lobby scrapbook paper. And again, the fairy lights. Next, I took 2 of the frames and removed all the contents as I had before, and then just used the pliers to remove all of the little metal brackets. I'm doing this totally off a frame. I didn't realize that until I actually looked at it, but you know what I'm doing. I'm just using the pliers to pull out those little metal brackets. And just be careful when you do it because they can break the frame. Next, I took my stag outline from my printer and just lined up the bottom of the page with the bottom of the glass. And then I took a white paint marker and just outlined, followed the outline right over top of the glass. So what I did mention as well is that I did wipe down this glass first with some vinegar, white vinegar, just so that all those oils or any type of residue was taken off of the front so that it would have a nice clean surface so my paint would adhere. And so I'm just going over with this paint marker, just tracing the image right over top of the glass. And here you can see that I have a nice outline now of the deer, of the stag head. So I can just go ahead now with my paint marker and fill in all the lines. Once that's done, I'm going to go ahead and let that dry thoroughly, go on to some other parts of the project, and then come back and give that a second coat. So while that's drying, I'm going to go ahead and go on to my lights. So as I mentioned before, this second strand that I'm using, I purchased from Walmart, and the lights are closer together. So although they both have 20 lights, this one you only can go around once, which is actually better because it's less work and it gives off just as much light. The only thing I didn't like about these is that they're like the cool white, and I like that warm white better. But anyway, this one works out better for putting it together. For the third frame, I'm going to repeat the same process I did in the first project. So I'm going to keep the little tabs intact, but remove all of the filler and the backing and the glass. And then I'm going to use the cardboard backing to create a template on the scrapbook paper so that we would have the black and red check scrapbook background Mod Podged to the cardboard backing. So once that's cut out, I'm going to just again apply some Mod Podge to the back of the cardboard backer. And again, it's just a nice thin layer, and I'm going to let it dry even a little bit before applying the paper. And then it's going to make that nice red and black buffalo check background for the light up sign. And now back to the stag head. I did actually try to do a little brush painting, and that didn't work out as well. I thought I would do just the first coat with the paint marker. What I found is that it actually worked out better with the paint marker, at least with the paint marker that I had. And I was just kind of using little tiny strokes like this. I didn't want to use too strong a stroke because I was afraid it was going to mess up the undercoat. So I did just kind of little strokes. It kind of gave it like a kind of furry finish, and it looked just fine. I didn't want to use the paint. The brush paint was very streaky, so this was a much better option. Then once that second coat was finished, I set it aside to dry thoroughly so I didn't have any mishaps in the handling. Then I went back to my buffalo check background and put that in as I had the first time. So I put that in first, and then I go back with the filler and the cardboard to add some extra padding to the back before closing the tabs, just to hold everything in place, because the tabs are kind of bigger for more stuff. So that holds it better that way if you put everything back in. And then I'm going to again go front to front. So I'm going to take the lighted frame and I'm going to place that face down so that it is front to front with the buffalo check frame. Then I'm again going to just cut that one back corner just so that I can have some space for the little cord to go through. And then for the frame that's going to hold the Stag's Head glass, I'm going to just go ahead and add some of the E6000 inside the frame, and then go back as well with a few dabs of the hot glue. Then I'm going to take the Stag's Head and I'm going to place it in the frame face down. And then just make sure it's nice and secure, and then just add a little paint bottles in order to weight it down, make sure it dries nicely in place. Now while that's drying, I'm going back to my other two frames, and I'm going to take the plaid one face up and add some E6000, then some hot glue, then take the lighted one and place that face down on the front of it. So the two frames are face to face. And then once that's dry, I'm going to go ahead and repeat the process with the E6000 and hot glue to attach the top frame. And then I just place the Stag's Head frame right up on top. And then again, I placed it in that box just so that I can hold it in place and make sure I have a nice straight edge. And here's the finished project, again ready to brighten any shelf, mantle, or tabletop. Well, I hope you have enjoyed these two Farmhouse Buffalo Check Dollar Tree DIYs, including this Stag's Head light up sign and this Merry and Bright light up sign. If you enjoyed the video, please remember to give a thumbs up, and please share with any family and friends you think would also enjoy this video. If you have a favorite or would like to ask me a question, please leave a comment below. And if you're not already a subscriber, please consider subscribing. We'd love to have you join the family. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.